So I would say we can slowly make a start here. Hello, everyone. My name is Agnieszka Kozolic, and I'm from Espro Sustainable Project. And today I'm super happy to welcome you all to today's webinar. It's one of the last of the MSP4BIO Blue series of webinar. And here goes a short announcement. So in line with European General Data Protection, we kindly ask all participants to keep their camera on only if you have consent being recorded and included in the event's photos and recording that will be placed afterwards in our YouTube channel at the end of the webinar itself. Additionally, feel free to drop your question in the Q&A section and vote for those that you like the most so we can assess them priority. Now I give the floor to Marina Markovic. Please, Marina.
Thank you very much, and welcome everyone. It's really a great pleasure to host one of the final webinars of the MSP4BIO. And on behalf of Barcelona Convention, UNEP MAP PAPRAC, I really thank you all for joining, and I wish us all a really great webinar. Thank you. So I would like to kindly ask Ivana Stojanovic to tell us a little bit more about the MSP4BIO based on which this webinar is taking place.
Thank you so much, Marina, and good morning, good afternoon all. Thank you for joining us. I see people are still joining, so maybe it's worth repeating once more that this webinar is being recorded, and in case you don't want to be recorded, this will be published on our website and YouTube channel. Please keep your cameras off. So my name is Ivana Stojanovic, and I'm happy to welcome you on behalf of MSP4BIO Consortium and Espro Sustainable Projects, which is the coordinator of MSP4BIO. And as pointed out, this is almost the last webinar in our series of Blue webinars. What have we planned for today? Next slide. So for today agenda, after this introductory part, as part of the session 1 on marine protection in Europe, we will have a presentation of area-based conservation measures. We will have then a 10 minutes Q&A session and proceed to session 2, which is on preserving biodiversity through maritime spatial planning. Here we have 2 presentations from partners from MSP4BIO Consortium on actually barriers and opportunities for mainstreaming biodiversity through maritime spatial planning, and also lessons learned and future needs for MSP and MPA integration. After another Q&A session, we will come to the session 3, which is focused more on this, let's say, transferability from strategy to policy, and what are the next steps. So what is the future of marine conservation? Here we will hear a bit about MSP4BIO results and work on policy recommendations for enhancing conservation in MSP, and not only our project, but also some cross-project cooperations. And then we will hear from Celine Frank from DG Mare on the next steps. Yes, we are happy that we can also hear a bit more about European Ocean Pact. After the Q&A session, we will come to the closing remarks done by Marina Markovic from PAPRAC. So these are our speakers. We will introduce them one by one before each presentation, but I think I already said a couple of words. And then the next slide is that what we really want to show and inform with this webinar is to provide an overview of protection and restoration measures in Europe, to provide insights into barriers, but also opportunities for integrating biodiversity in maritime spatial policies and plans, and then also talk about recommendations for this successful integration between conservation and maritime spatial planning across different governance levels and ecosystems. Just a little bit about MSP4BIO project. Next slide. So we are announcing it as one of the last webinars because actually our project is ending on the 31st of July this year. In the past 3 years, we have been working among 18 partners all over the Europe, focusing our co-development activities in 6 European test sites. Next slide, please. The goal of the project is really to support European but also global policies when it comes to biodiversity. And next slide, please. By integrating 4 pillars, environmental pillar, socioeconomic and policy one, and then going towards integration really of different consideration for MPA prioritization, planning and management. Next one. And then the objective was really to develop and demonstrate an integrative management framework, combining all these dimensions that I mentioned for prioritization of strategic and spatial conservation management measures. Next slide, please. I mentioned that we worked in 6 test sites. They are really quite different from local ones to transboundary and national ones. And yeah, this diversity was a challenge, but also quite helpful when it comes to really developing something that is transferable enough that can work in different contexts. And in each of the sites, we worked with site-specific stakeholders, establishing communities of practice. Next slide, please. So we have different key results. Those are components of this management framework, which we call as a framework, ecological socioeconomic framework, but not only really site-specific solutions, the integration framework, MSP guideline, an overview of biodiversity data, and yeah, policy coherence solutions. Next one. And yeah, so all these are combined in this as a framework which supports mainstreaming of biodiversity in maritime spatial planning. Next one. This final framework will be available both as a document, but also website. So we are happy. We will have soon our final event to really promote and showcase everything that we have done in the past 3 years. We are also part of the MPA community network. So yeah, next slide, please. If you are interested and you would like to join, here are some QR codes. And the last but not least is really to announce our final event, which will be hosted by CNR in Venice, a very nice location from the 2nd to 4th of July. It will be a hybrid event, so please join us. Yeah, we are happy to share with you all our results and validate them together. These are our partners. And yes, next slide, you can actually find a QR code to our website here, or our work is already published. So all deliverables produced so far and everything else in addition is publicly available for your use. Thank you so much. Yes, I suggest we pass to the next presentation of this first session. And please use both chat and, well, chat is more for exchanges, but then Q&A section of Teams to drop your questions. We will be checking them regularly and answering them in the dedicated sections of the webinar. So our first speaker after this introductory part is Martina Bocci, a research consultant in the CNR ISMAR. CNR was the lead partner when it comes to ecological considerations of the ESF framework and of the ecological toolkit containing decision support tools, but not only. Actually, the introductory work, let's say, to the ESF framework was actually an overview of area-based conservation measures. So Martina will let us know where do we stand today and a little bit about progress and challenges. Please, Martina, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Ivana. Good morning all from my side. I will start with the next slide with just a very brief mention to the policy frameworks that support our effort in protecting biodiversity across our seas. And mentioning, I need to mention the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, which is a cornerstone in this aspect, with the Sustainable Goal 14 addressing conservation and sustainable use of our ocean and seas, and mentioning the need to and the target to conserve to protect at least the 10% of marine and coastal areas already by 2030. This was strongly reinforced by the initiative of the Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework, with these important targets, and the three first ones are very relevant for the today topic: restoring 30% of all degraded ecosystems on sea and land, and conserve the 30% of land, waters, and sea. With the first target mentioning the need to sustainable plan, and so enforcing very much MSP as a tool. This has been, as you know well, embedded in our European policy with the EU biodiversity strategy, recalling the 30% target with a 10% strict protection, and very importantly mentioning the need to target effective management of all protected areas. With the next slide, we will see that we are far from reaching these targets. The snapshot the European Environmental Agency provides us for the 2022 is something like 12% of protected area coverage in the European seas, with a remarkable increase since 2012, but still very much far from the 30% target, also in terms of rate of increase of this spatial dimension. And I want also to mention that the largest component of this spatial protection is thanks to the Natura 2000 networks, which is the green bars in the plot, while other spatial protection measures are the yellow one. With the next slide, we will also introduce the big topic, which is not just the distance from reaching in terms of spatial protection the target, but also to ensure effective protection. I think all of us working with MPAs, with marine protection, we are aware of the existence of a lower level of protection. This is reported also in literature. In many cases, it is reported that measures included in designation of sites are insufficient, and sometimes too many uses are still allowed in the sites, and this is halting really the implementation of biodiversity protection. The topic of missing or unapplied management plans is also an issue. And where they exist, we have common knowledge about management measures that are weakly or not implemented. And this is largely due to a lack of monitoring, assessment, and sometimes reported as lack of resources in terms of human resources and fundings as well. With the next slide, I'll introduce you to our overview that we prepared in the framework of the project. Our approach was to provide for us as a partnership, and also for our readers, a snapshot about the main categories and the main features of marine protected areas in a broad sense in the European seas, designed under international, European, or national level legislation. We also considered the topic of the OSCMs, the other effective area-based conservation measures in a broad sense, no matter where they have been really, I would say, approved and recognized in formal frameworks, but more as a concept. We also dig into some restoration measures. I'll not mention this topic today for for a sake of time, but this was also included in the study. Next slide, please. Our approach was a combination of desk study and interviews. So we first wanted to provide an overview at sea basin level. We were not able really to complete a sea basin overview, but we decided to sample some test site countries. So you see in the slide which countries we were studying in details in our process. We provided a list of typology of designation for each of these countries. We identified some in-depth, some illustrative cases where we developed some in-depth analysis, and I'm going to present the results of this part mainly. And interviews were a very important element in this, because we wanted to improve our understanding of what is going on really at designation and implementation level on the ground in the cases. The next slide, please. Yeah, these are our cases across the European seas, 23 cases, some of them protected natural areas, fishery management areas, and other OACMs. I mentioned this acronym to include PSSA, particularly sensitive sea areas, and underwater cultural heritage sites. Some sites, some test cases had double designation, so the sum of them is more than 23 if you sum the typology. With the next slide, I would like to just to tell you what kind of features of these MPAs we were interested in: two, designation type, its level, so from subnational to national, regional, European or international one, where these sites were located. And then we focused on three important pillars: human uses and activities, anthropogenic pressures, and which ecological criteria were used for designation. We also reviewed the management measures, in particularly the availability of the management plan and its eventual content. And we discussed with interviewees, in many cases, if there was any negotiation, any trade-off activity between sea uses and marine protection in designation. If there was the case, we also dig into details about coexisting and multi-uses eventually applied in the area. With the next slide, please. Yeah, the results are very detailed. I recommend you to consult the deliverable. The main detailed results are summarized in 23 detailed fact sheets that are available. What you see on the slide is not a fact sheet. Fact sheet is much longer and much more detailed. It's just a simple an example of the main contents, and there is always a map and geographic reference to it. So I think the added value of this deliverable is stays a lot on some detailed analysis at case study level. But with the next slides, I will try also to provide some general points from the results. Ecological criteria prioritized for conservation. These, of course, are very different and very variable and very site dependent and very sea basin dependent also. They range from protection of species, of habitat, of fish stocks, reproduction areas of fish, but also seabirds and migration routes, and some specificity about the Mediterranean, for example, a prioritization of marine mammals, endangered species, deep sea habitats, and coastal habitats in the Black Sea. So a wide variety considering the very heterogeneity of European seas and coasts. With the next slide, I will focus about the results on the pressures that these area-based measurement tools are targeting. And again, here we have some specificity regarding the tests, the case studies, and the sea basins with the Baltic Sea, with some cases focused on impact by nutrient and contaminant, the North Sea, seabed disturbance or physical loss. From the northeastern Atlantic, we find some cases with multiple pressures, including litter, sound pollution, species extraction, and in the Mediterranean, again, species extraction, pollutants, noise. So many cases with different main pressures. They were classified according to Marine Strategy Framework Directive nomenclature, and generally multiple pressures and very site-specific issues also to be considered. With the next slide, I'll touch upon our interest in understanding whether trade-offs, compromises, any dialogue was implemented in the designation phase in these cases. I have to say that we had a few documentation about real discussion at test site level during the designation phase, and this is something that we will also report in the conclusion. It's a point where we should definitely advance and do more. We reported some cases of discussion at local level on the possibility to include fishing, hunting, scuba diving, boat anchoring activities in some of the cases. But unfortunately, in several cases, it does report that the acceptance was quite smooth due to the lack of introduction of real protection measures or their limited spatial extent. So this was not really a genuine negotiation, but something like a passive acceptance or the understanding by the stakeholders that, how to say, MPAs were a bit a paper exercise only. With the next slide, I will provide
Martina,
you with, yes,
if you can maybe wrap up in 2 minutes.
Yes, I wrap up.
Thanks.
Just 3 slides very shortly. Our learning tip. There is the opportunity to capitalize on a mix of top-down and bottom-up approaches. We have reported that sometimes their combination work better than only one approach. The second tip in the next slide is regards the opportunity to reinforce biodiversity protection by joining force with underwater cultural heritage protection. And this was done in several cases, was documented in several cases. So combining different types of protection together. And the third and last learning tip is about the opportunity to integrate different area-based marine protection tools. Sometimes marine parks and other area-based management tools like PSSAs, we have the experience in the Mediterranean, the Palagos Agreement, they kind of provide some loose protection measures, but they can be an opportunity to pave the way for more specific area-based measures. I think within the last slide, I will try to come to some conclusion. Yes, maybe they can sound a bit obvious, but they were really checked on the ground in our 23 cases. These are very powerful tools in theory, but we really need to strengthen them in terms of extension and effectiveness. Gaps in designations, we recorded the length of the process, low level of protection, and limited or just formal stakeholder engagement. And gaps in implementation were also recorded: effective management, we mentioned already, monitoring and control, and lack of resources. In terms of opportunities, I just mentioned the use of different tools in combination of top-down and bottom-up approach, and ensure stakeholder understanding of conservation benefit. I haven't mentioned the restoration, but our deliverable reflects on the opportunity to see protection and restoration measures as complementary, and the need for long-term perspective can be satisfied and supported by MSP that could create a long-term strategic perspective for protection and restoration together. I thank you for your attention. I took a bit longer, but yeah, I wanted to summarize some key topics. I'm very happy to collect your questions and comments.
Yes, thank you so much, Martina. And actually, it's a lot of work, so not easy to present in a short presentation, but I think you gave a pretty good overview on what was done and what are the results. We currently don't have questions in Q&A and section and the chat, but maybe we can also invite participants to, take the floor and ask the question on the first session before we go to the second one. Is there anything from MSP4BIO or on the area-based conservation measures that you would like to know more about? Okay. There don't seem to be any specific questions. So we would then invite you once more to really go to our website, check out the deliverable. It's available. It's a longer report, but hopefully something very useful for your work. And then I suggest then we proceed to the session 2, which is on barriers and opportunities. The entire session is about preserving biodiversity through maritime spatial planning, but our first presentation is on barriers and opportunities for mainstreaming biodiversity through MSP. For this presentation, we have with us Päivi Hapasari from the Finnish Environment Institute. Päivi is a senior research scientist in SUKE, the Finnish Environment Institute, and actually was very much involved in the MSP4BIO project in the dedicated work package on policy, doing this analysis on barriers and opportunities and for policy coherence. So please, Päivi, you have the floor.
Thank you, Ivana, and hello, everyone. And thank you for being here, every one of you. I'm pleased to walk you through the main findings of the work package 6 of MSP4BIO on behalf of Riku Varjopuro, Kemal, Pinar, Pasi, and myself, and all partners that contributed to this task. So in MSP4BIO, we address the widely recognized challenge of mainstreaming biodiversity concern and objectives into marine policies and practices by identifying related barriers and levers across policy levels, including 8 EU member states, 4 regional sea conventions, and the EU, based on policy document analysis, interviews, and community of practice discussions at the project test sites. We also analyzed maritime spatial planning as a solution to enhance and expedite at the slow process of mainstreaming. And now I will provide a short overview on this latter task, the possibilities of MSP to enhance biodiversity, mainstreaming, and conservation. Next slide, please. So first, what are the key institutional levers for MSP to enhance biodiversity mainstreaming? Of course, the main thing is that MSP covers all marine sectors, activities, as well as conservation. The potential of MSP in the conservation of marine environment is also recognized in many or most relevant marine and maritime policies, or at least policy domains, from the biodiversity strategy to common fisheries policies, marine action plan, to offshore energy strategy, and also referred to in the maritime transport policy domain. MSP is also strongly linked to the Marine Strategy Framework Directive and to Habitats and Birds directives. And then all coastal EU member states are required to implement Maritime Spatial Planning Directive, and many of the examined national MSP legislations also explicitly refer to biodiversity or prioritize it high. And also the regional sea conventions value biodiversity high, and therefore they also provide frameworks for supporting their contracting parties in biodiversity conservation and in MSP. Next slide, please. So MSP has also some operational levers or levers inherent to its practices that can promote biodiversity conservation. MSP is inherently a collaborative approach involving stakeholders from multiple sectors. It is also interdisciplinary and it requires cross-border cooperation. MSP links ecological integrity with economic use, and it applies the ecosystem-based approach to guide the balancing of the priorities. MSP plans are also assessed through strategic environmental assessments, as well as assessments required by the Birds and Habitats directives. All this means that MSP is a holistic approach that can address and coordinate between activities at sea and produce synergies, also in terms of biodiversity. It is also a proactive approach that enables to avoid and reduce negative impacts of human activities on the marine environment. Furthermore, our study suggests that MSP can serve as a useful tool for communicating the requirements of biodiversity legislation to the users of the sea, and therefore it can enhance the social acceptance of environmental legislation. Next slide, please. However, we also identified different types of barriers that reduce the effectiveness of maritime spatial planning in biodiversity mainstreaming. And here I summarize the barriers to three main categories. First, the implementation of the Maritime Spatial Planning Directive varies widely across member states, with differences in priorities, objectives, and administrative bodies, as well as in the role of maritime spatial planning in the designation of marine protected areas. In some countries, maritime spatial planning is not legally binding, or the plans are not legally binding, which also may affect the implementation of the plans. Also, the support from the regional sea conventions differs in different regional seas. And all this, of course, tends to hamper the transboundary coordination and thus the cohesive biodiversity outcomes. Next slide, please. And then second, the coordination of maritime spatial planning within countries is not as good as it could be. Policy domains tend to be siloed, and coordination between them and, for example, between the national and regional levels seems to be weak in many cases. Of course, the fact that MSP lacks possibilities to directly influence sectoral decision-making limits its capacity as a coordinating mechanism. Centralized planning hampers participation from regions, and mechanisms for public participation may be missing. And in some cases, MSP is even poorly known among the environmental stakeholders and even overlooked as a tool for pursuing good environmental status and the objectives of the biodiversity strategy, which may imply weak representation of environmental interests. Next slide, please. Third, we also identified some conceptual and technical gaps limiting the effectiveness of MSP. So it is quite widely argued that the ecosystem-based approach is vague and therefore inconsistently applied. The Marine Strategy Framework Directive and the Good Environmental Status are important for MSP, but still it is argued that GES does not adequately guide the protecting of species, habitats, and ecosystems, as it is about the sustainable use of marine resources and services instead of biodiversity protection as such. Also, the GES indicators are considered poorly operational, owing to missing or insufficient threshold values. Links between MSP and concrete biodiversity tools, including data and monitoring and measures like marine protected areas, are still weak. And in addition, human and financial resources for MSP to address biodiversity are limited, especially given many competing issues in the agendas of the responsible ministries. And of course, this is a prioritization issue also. Next slide, please. So it can be concluded that There are strong MSP policy frameworks in different countries, but the implementation of the Maritime Spatial Planning Directive and the MSP plans does not always support biodiversity. Economic priorities are often ranked higher. The study also suggests that the MSP directive is a somewhat ambiguous policy. So how to enhance biodiversity outcomes? Clear legal and policy frameworks, including definitions and specifications, for example, GES and the ecosystem-based approach, clear guidelines, for example, for using the ecosystem-based approach and overall for addressing biodiversity. Effective coordination between authorities and between governance levels and broad stakeholder engagement are key issues. Integration of biodiversity tools, including data and monitoring to MSP, is particularly important for realizing the full potential of MSP in biodiversity mainstreaming and conservation. And I think that Helena will continue from this. And this was all from my part. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Päivi. Just a reminder to all to drop your questions in the Q&A section and or in the chat. We will also invite you all to ask questions directly during the Q&A section that will come after the next presentation. So the next presentation of the session 2 is about the lessons learned and future needs for maritime spatial planning and marine protection integration, and with a look at practical experiences in the EU achievements and gaps in implementation. For this presentation, we have with us Elena Pina-Calado. She's an assistant professor at the University of the Azores, and she has been leading the work package dedicated to socioeconomic dimensions of this integration process, and also creating the as a framework together with CNR. So we are very happy to have her here, as well as really the representative of one of the core work packages of MSP4BIO project. Elena, you have the floor, please.
Thank you very much. I'm very pleased to be here with all of you, and I hope you enjoy this short session. That would be long talks that we could give, but let's focus on a few key messages. So just to let you know that I will focus on a particular deliverable, which is deliverable 4.4 part 1. And that deliverable was aiming just to propose some guidance for the integration of MPAs into MSP process. So I advise you to look for the website of MSP4BIO project. Work package 4 as much more than this. It has great works on the integration of socioeconomic dimensions led by our partners on University of Cadiz, and of course we have contributed for the final product of work package 4, which is the EASY framework. So that being said, I hope you can take some time to go to our website and explore other findings that I think are really important, specifically because we are again setting very high targets for our ocean conservancy policy. You know that in Nice at this moment, UNOC is going on. More and more ambition is put on our aims for ocean conservation, and I think we need that ambition to be motivated, but we also need to be realistic of what have we achieved why are we failing in some parts, and what have we learned. This deliverable is exactly on that. So what we have done is creating two basic tools to screen plans all over Europe, maritime special plans. So we had an extensive literature review on plans assessment, and we have created a tool for all our partners to screen maritime special plannings and a criteria checklist to be validated and ranked. It took the entire consortium to do this work. So we managed to screen all plans across Europe. And from that, and with the input of the experts of MSP4BIO, we come to some findings that we are going to share with you. Next slide, please, Agnese. So just to let you know that we have a massive database on plant screening, thanks to our wonderful partners in MSP4BIO. Next slide, please, Agnese. So the first thing that we try to arrange is how can we arrange the different forms of integration of MPAs into MSP process. And we came up with 4 levels of integration, and these 4 levels are not rigid. So a country might have some parts on level 2 and some parts on level 3, but for the sake of the analysis, we try to arrange the findings in the EU plans in these 4 levels. So level 1, it doesn't exist in Europe, although some countries almost have this where conservation is the driver for MSP. Of course, this one is the iconic plan for the Great Barrier Reef, or maybe some other countries, but we don't have it in Europe, but we have, for the sake of the concepts, we have to put it. Then level 2, where conservations or MPAs are fully integrated into MSP across sectors, and it's good to know that we have some countries in this level. Level 3, where MPAs are integrated to strategic environmental assessment or other environmental spatial strategies, and this level is the one that is more fuzzy. So some countries have entered and exit this level during our analysis. And then finally, level 4, where MPAs are a layer for MSP. Next slide, please, Agnese. So we have extracted analysis for each country and for sea basins. And what is interesting is that, of course, we didn't come to the point where direct correlations were done, but by analyzing the findings on each sea basin, we could see different strengths and weaknesses in the different sea basins. So, for example, the Atlantic Sea Basin, the challenges are still on the ecological coherence, monitoring and stakeholder conflicts are still very challenging in the Atlantic, although the legal framework is still one very well designed in some countries. We still struggle for the integration of MPAs into MSP. On the North Sea Basin, of course, the offshore renewable energy integration alongside MPAs, it's the trademark of the North Sea Basin, and but still the challenges are transboundary collaboration, multi-use spatial planning. They are still challenging on this region. It doesn't mean that they don't have inspiring lessons, because they do. So the Mediterranean has also a mark, which is the ecosystem-based approach, where the balance of offshore and coastal connectivity and the efforts to strengthen institutional cooperation are highlighted. Again, the Mediterranean Sea Basin still struggles also with some integration of socioeconomic evaluations, connectivity assessments to inform comprehensive planning. The Black Sea Basin the highlight is regional cooperation. and the integration of MPAs into blue economy sectors. The challenges are still on connectivity assessments, biodiversity monitoring, and integrating ecological and economic priorities. And finally, the Baltic Sea Basin has has some very interesting experiences on the integration of MPAs in MSP, in cross-border cooperation, and of course the unique dimensions of HELCOM. There is a very strong, that's my opinion, a very strong and proactive Regional Sea Convention. It has promoted MSP through the years, and it has promoted cooperation. And so we find in the Baltic Sea very interesting examples of level 2. Of course, there's some challenge still ahead, as the legal harmonization, the enforcement of some mechanisms, but of course, the long history of studies and planning helps to mitigate some of these weaknesses, but challenges will, of course, will prevail, has connectivity or cumulative impact assessment, which come as some regional priorities in the days ahead. Next slide, please, Agnese. So just to let you know again, the deliverable has all this analysis more detailed and has the analysis from 4 key levels. So the analysis on key level 4, for example, has recommendations on how to move on from level 4. And here I'm just going to speak about the big blocks that, of course, confirm what Pavia said before and are more or less on the same line. So what we have has gaps or weaknesses or threats is varying levels of coordination between MPAs and MSP. So we have countries scattered all over the 4 key levels. Environmental assessments are still insufficient. All sea basins have this as a weakness, and legal and structural distinctions of concepts and application of the different tools. Also, stakeholder engagement is far from being ideal, although some sea basins present strategies more proactive than others. And from there, we extracted, of course, lessons to the ones that still are still struggling with some challenges. But what we took as very interesting is the lack of clear guidance that Pavia has also mentioned. And for there, that's where we moved to another goal that we didn't had at the beginning, which is to produce a tool or a model for MPA's integration in MSP. Next slide, please, Agnese. So in the deliverable, you can find all these outcomes in chapters for key levels, the strategic guidance for integration, the EU sea basis analysis, the different integration approaches, the identification of gaps and threats, the role of strategic environmental assessment, and I will come back to this in a minute, the criteria checklist, both for integration, and we also had a list of criteria that planners and official agencies said that will be relevant in the future. So our screening of the maritime special plans was done with interviews to planners in each country or official agents for maritime special planning. And then finally, the recommendations coming from best practices and from the integration levels. Next slide, please, Agnese. So this is the model that we started to where we started to aggregate all the parts of this massive work. Of course, this model will be integrated in the EASY framework that Martina has spoken a bit in the beginning of this webinar. The model is organized on the 3 stages of planning, although, as you will see then, if you consult this model on the website, you'll see that it's flexible, so planners can pick up any stage of planning or make it cumulative or making it flow as it fits better for their context and framework. In each stage of planning, we have always 3 blocks of tools: strategic environmental assessment, the criteria checklist, and the strategic recommendations. Next slide, please. So, strategic environmental assessment. This is probably the aspect that we explored more in depth. That is on the deliverable, and it's not on the it's on the final model also, but with a great concern. Strategic environmental assessment directive is outdated and it has little specific for marine environment. So that being said, what is needed for strategic environmental assessment and what member states could do is to actually update their specific legislations on strategic environmental assessment and make it more central role in strategic planning. Also, they integrate the need to mitigate cumulative impacts. So cumulative impacts are poorly addressed and mitigation measures are most of the time absent. Also, there are some common focus areas between cross-border or international that a strategic environmental assessment addresses very poorly. In most of the cases, there are implemented challenges, but strategic environmental assessment must clearly provide some more sustainable solutions for mitigation. So this was our great concern with strategic environmental assessment. Next slide, please.
Elena, just a reminder that you have a couple of more minutes to wrap up.
Yes, I'm going to wrap up very quickly. The criteria, the criteria checklist that we spoke about, it's organized on 4.
You muted yourself, Elena.
The planning process, I speak too much with my hands. A block on environmental criteria, a block on governance criteria, and a block on socioeconomic criteria. So this checklist is more like a reminder in each step of the planning process. Next slide, please, Agnese. In the deliverable, we organized criteria in areas for the coastal zone, offshore, and ice seas. Please remember that those criteria were ranked and validated when we screened the plans by officials on official agencies from Maritime Spatial Planning. Next slide, please. And then the strategic guidelines. So the strategic guidelines were extracted from the screening, and as Pavi said, they look quite obvious, except that then we have more detailed instructions on the model. So the legal framework, where binding framework seems to be one of the best options, and some countries still don't have them clearly defined. The stakeholder engagement, that is still a challenge in some sea basins and some countries. Monitoring and data, where data collection and enforcement is still a need. The ecological connectivity with corridors being considered or other forms of spatial consideration of connectivity, climate resilience integration, and cross-border coordination. So next slide, please, Agnese. And what we need to provide in the future, we need to provide a structured integration process, if possible with legal alignment, balanced conservation and other uses with inclusive stakeholder governance. Monitoring and adaptive management is still a challenge throughout Europe. And finally, ecological connectivity and climate resilience in the long term. We have this guide coming up. It's coming up soon on MSP4BIO, where you will find the model, and you will find for each of the blocks in each stage of planning recommendations for the integration of marine protected areas in maritime spatial planning. So I would again advise you to go to the website and look into this. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Elena, for presenting this, really, as you said, tremendous amount of work. And there is actually a comment here, since now we arrived to the Q&A session. And yeah, we see a lot of applauses and hearts for this session. Thank you for this. So in the Q&A, let's say part of section of the teams, there is actually more a comment from Croatia, if I understood correctly. It says that they would like to add one more obstacle to MSP, because in Croatia, the adoption of a national maritime spatial plan has been avoided by passing the responsibility for maritime spatial planning to local level. So coastal counties and cities are in charge. And it seems that such a solution was acceptable for the European Commission. Such a segmentation is inappropriate in adopting any policy for the seas, and it will be very difficult to protect biodiversity in that way. And then there is a response that the Maritime Spatial Plan for the EEZ in Croatia is actually in the process of development. So yeah, I see a couple of hands raised, but maybe maybe I will first give the floor to Celine, and then Elena, if you would also like to comment. I guess Matthew would like to add something. So let's first comment on this contribution, and then I will give the floor to Matthew. Celine, please.
Yeah, thank you. So Céline Frank from European Commission, DG Mare. No, just to react quickly to this comment and to say, I think somebody replied already, but there is no formally adopted maritime spatial plan in Croatia yet. And we are actually in an infringement procedure against Croatia for that. So what I can say is that we considered encouraging that there is some process ongoing, which doesn't mean that we will accept a plan that is not done at national level, and it needs to be formally noticed to the Commission by the national level. So obviously it will have to go up, even if a plan can be developed first at local level. It just needs then to be put together by the national government and then sent to us so we can evaluate if we accept it or not. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Marina, I suppose you would also like to comment on this.
Yes, thank you, Celine. Just a tiny note also on Croatia. So the thing is, Croatia is planning marine area for decades as part of the land use planning. So it's not that MSP has been somehow segmented and transferred to local level, but it's part of the practice. So it's already being part of the land use planning. In addition, Croatia is working also on the national land use plan that would also include this part up to the external limits of the territorial sea, with some of the key aspects which enabling somehow link with the local and national level. And on top of that, Croatia is currently, as Celine pointed out, working on the EEZ plan fully in line with the EU directive. And we hope actually it should be announced quite soon, according to the information that we have from the ministry. We are quite looking forward to this. Thank you.
Thank you so much for these additional comments and clarifications. Elena, please.
I just wanted to clarify that when I say that we have screened all plans across Europe, of course, those that are formally adopted. So Greece is also one of the cases that we could not screen the plan, but all the other 20 plans were screened, and we also have tried some outside of Europe. But yes, but I think both countries are in the path to have their plans prepared and approved as soon as possible.
Yes. Yes, thank you so much. And this report as well has already been published on our website. It's still under review by the European Commission. I mean, this is the process, but still we wanted to make it available in line with the open science practices. So if you're interested, you can go to our website and really check it out. And then in addition, there will be, let's say, concise summarized guideline that Elena announced in her last slides. Okay, is there any other question or comment? We still have a couple of minutes. Päivi, please.
Yeah, thank you. Just as an encouragement for Croatia, as in Finland also, the maritime spatial planning is a regional approach. The state has a role in it, but the actual planning takes place in different regions. So, and it has worked quite well. So it's not. It doesn't have to be a barrier. It can be developed into a success.
Yeah. Hopefully it will be the case as well for Croatia. Okay, yes, there are some more links and comments in the chat on this, providing some sources. Very interesting discussion, I would say, especially for a country maybe that is still to develop its official maritime spatial plan. So yeah, maybe also this work can be helpful in this process. Okay, I see no more questions or raised hands. So we pass to the session 3, which is going from strategy to policy, shaping the future of marine conservation. Here we have 2 presentations planned, and the first one is on policy recommendations for enhancing conservation in MSP. This presentation will be delivered by Kemal Pinarbashi from HELCOM and Mauro Randone from WWF Mediterranean, who together with Päivi or HELCOM and WWF Med together with Suke were really the main partners driving the policy work in MSP4BIO project. So we are happy to have them here today presenting again interesting work that has been done in the past couple of years. Kemal is a project coordinator at HELCOM and actually working on MSP and marine conservation policy implementation and ecosystem services for some time now, while Mauro Randone is the regional project manager at WWF Med. I'm sure many of you know them both, and yes, this presentation will be delivered collaboratively by the 2 of them. Okay, Kemal, you have the floor.
Thank you so much, Ivana. So hello, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here with you. It's Kemal Pinarbashi from HELCOM Secretariat, and I will continue in what actually Päivi just explained in the beginning. So in our work package 6 on the policy coherence work package of MSP4BIO, we had like 3 main pillars where we go and check the barriers. What are the barriers to mainstream biodiversity in MSP and in marine and maritime policies? What kind of solutions we can produce and how we can recommend it, what kind of recommendations we can create, and how we can communicate it to policymakers. So we have also these science policy dialogues, think tanks, etc. So specifically for this webinar, yes, we have this 30 by 30 challenge, and marine conservation and MSP are extremely relevant. And marine biodiversity loss despite existing framework continues. We identified in our first work, as I said, there's fragmented governance problems, sometimes poor data or siloed decision makings. And this connection between MSP and MPA processes was seen in several cases. And also in the sectoral policies, sometimes marine conservation or biodiversity was not even mentioned. And we know that MSP can contribute in several ways. It can coordinate marine uses, try to reduce the pressure on nature. It can provide spatial frameworks to support MPA networks. It can embed biodiversity in sectoral decisions. And of course, it can also enable cross-border and cross-sectoral governance. But then after seeing the barriers, we went to stakeholders, we went to MSP competent authorities, we collected a lot of opinions, and we came up with our policy recommendations for the countries to mainstream biodiversity in their MSPs and marine and maritime policies. So since it's a huge deliverable and I have only 5 minutes, I will try to touch to the most important points here. Next slide, please. So we recommend to the countries go with dedicated biodiversity coordination frameworks and go with cross-scale and cross-sector collaboration, include everyone. We saw interesting cases where the MSP and MPA management were not actually touching each other, they were not knowing a lot from each other. Marine conservation and MSP were totally different concepts. And we saw also examples, I can say one good example why I think Sweden, but that the marine protection and MSP management were from the same authority and very interlinked and overlapping. So we saw several governance and coordination issues. That's why we gave several recommendations on this. And then we also saw that there are so many marine protected areas, which are paper MPAs. Actually, Martina also mentioned that in her presentation, that there's no management plan in the MPAs. And this is making the things extremely challenging. Of course, an MPA can block a lot of activities in an area, but a management plan makes it effective. So that's why we also recommend go and redefine your MPA objectives. Check if they are there or if they are clearly regulated. But then we also saw that MSP people, the planners, and the marine protection people are not well communicating. So we said that maybe MSP planners, let's say marine spatial planners, can be inside of MPA processes in a consultative role. At the same time, marine protection people can come and join the MSP processes. So please include marine protected areas in your spatial planning, because not all the spatial plans mention marine conservation. There are different examples that in strategic environmental assessment, they mention Natura 2000 areas, some MPAs, but some even did not mention and just focused on this economic side, the blue growth. Then we also recommended please support OECMs and strictly protected areas. The 10% goal is there. And legally binding biodiversity targets. As you know, we have MSP, but we have another directive, MSFT, which is aiming the good environmental status. And it has some targets, thresholds where we can check if the status of environment is good or not. MSP is really new. The first cycle is just recently finished, and the second cycle will start or started already. But we did not monitor the plans, and performance reviews are not completed. So we said that this alignment should be done, and then we need to check the performance of MSP in terms of biodiversity issues. That's why we need to add some binding biodiversity targets, maybe in the sectorial policies, also somewhere in the MSPs. Next slide, please. Stakeholders. We need permanent stakeholder platforms. A lot of feedback was on that. There are some stakeholder platforms, very temporarily, some opinions were gathered, but then after that, these platforms disappeared, actors changed. So we need this permanent stakeholder platform. France had a great example, actually. After their MSPs, they used this online system to collect opinions on their marine spatial plan. And of course, we recommended to engage research institutions and communities in the MSP, training for MSP practitioners on biodiversity integration and in general biodiversity. So MSP side, MSP practitioners should get capacity building activities and trainings on the biodiversity. That's a must. That's why we also suggested e-learning and some dialogue forums that we can bring together the biodiversity experts and then MSP experts. And one good example was also here in the Baltic Sea, that biodiversity working group and the MSP, HELCOM WASP MSP working group coming together and then exchanging information. What are your plans? What are your expectations from us? Tools, data, and assessment. We found many tools. There are so many decision support tools. However, why do we have so many decision support tools? And if they are doing the same thing, why we couldn't use them together? So we found a lot of interesting tools such as PlanWise for Blue, Symphony, Spatial Pressure Impact Assessment, and then Marks and Invest, etc. It goes on. But we believe that some standardized biodiversity assessment and reporting is needed, and these tools should be used in a harmonized way in the countries. And another issue was that there are several tools, but these tools were not mentioned or used in the plan, official plan. Always in the research activities we see there are a lot of cumulative impact assessment results are there, but why these results were not used inside of the tool most of the time? Of course, it's a challenge, but yes, we recommended to use this cumulative impact assessment tools, but inside of the plan. Next slide, please. We suggested funding and research, of course, is a must, and a dedicated biodiversity fund, actually from maritime taxes. If the maritime sectors are creating these pressures and impacts, why not to use some taxes from them to fund biodiversity research, support MPA management, long-term monitoring is needed. And climate smart MSP, it was of course like, it's a must. Climate adaptation, mitigation, knowledge integration, and monitoring is needed to be integrated in MSP. And climate refugee examples we found in several countries. And these kind of examples maybe should be followed. Next slide, please. Sorry, I hope I was on time, but yeah, we call for action and we need to embed biodiversity targets in maritime policies. We should institutionalize coordination and stakeholder engagement. We should align MSP, MSFD, and EU nature restoration law. And yesterday we learned also about Ocean Pact that now my colleague Celine later will also talk about it. And please invest in data, tools, and capacity building. And finally, we are working with several projects, like there are ongoing projects, I think around 10 projects. We have all recommendations, and we are talking about similar things. Currently, MSP4BIO is working on a joint policy brief with these relevant EU projects. It's in progress, but will be out very soon. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kemal. And I think Mauro can continue informing us a bit more about this cross-project cooperation and science policy dialogue think tanks that have been operating in MSP4BIO projects for the past couple of years. Please, Mauro.
Fantastic. Thank you, Ivana. Can you hear me properly? I'm in a train station right now on my way to Nice for the UN Ocean Conference. Well. Okay, fantastic. But apologies about the noise if you hear noise in the background. First of all, what we were aiming to do with the Science Policy Dialogue think tanks, essentially, we wanted to answer a relatively simple question. So how can our projects collectively support and direct policy actors in enhancing conservation in maritime spatial planning? As I said, it's a simple question, but not always easy to answer, particularly when there's no coordination mechanisms among different projects, or when we also lose track on the specific goals, policy goals of the various projects. So here in this slide, we kind of summarize the main objective. So to co-develop key recommendations in collaboration with the linked projects and achieve validation through the engagement with policy actors. Essentially, it's about collaboration. It's about coordinating on different types of tools, and then having someone organizing the different tools, which I'll show you in a moment, to simplify, let's say, the policy usage in the end. You can move to the next slide, Ivana. Okay, so how did we actually do it? Here are some of the projects that participated in the think tanks. Only a few. There are many more than these. We had 4 think tanks since the beginning of MSP4BIO. And essentially, we started within the think tanks to screen different policy objectives and targets from the various projects. As Kemal said, this is leading to joint policy briefs, for example, that are coming out towards the end of MSP4BIO. We realized that there is a huge amount of tools, policy briefs, guidelines, data tools, toolkits, frameworks, and we started analyze them one by one, exploring potential synergies. We had one-on-one meetings with the various projects, and then basically we did a mapping and of the tools and outcomes. And this is what I'm going to show you in a moment. So the methodology that we adopted was the social network analysis, and it's a methodology that is normally not used in this context, but it can be implemented easily also for looking at these kind of tools. It helped to identify. We started with an identification of the various topics of the tools of the projects, and then the function, if they were more operative tools or data-driven or policy-focused. And I won't go through the table in detail, but soon you will have the final report of MSP4BIO. You can look at all these in more detail. What was particularly interesting was to understand, for example, what kind of tools could be used for specific policies or specific targeting specific topics or sectors. You can move to the next slide. So this is the results of the social network analysis. But I think some of you that are more familiar with these type of analysis will now understand a little bit better what we're talking about. How can this be useful? First of all, we have all the tools and various outputs of the project numbered on the right. You can recognize probably your own project or the project there. And then they're divided by topics, and they're linked to each other based on, for example, how much they're focusing on the same topic, or, for example, if they are data-driven tools. So if you need to, for example, look into a range of data-driven tools focusing on the same topics, you know exactly where to look for. And this is also was a very useful exercise to identify where there are gaps. For example, there are topics or particular tools or many tools that are focusing on specific aspects, and while other aspects are less dealt with by the various projects. So this can be informative both also at the EU level for future calls, for instance. Now, obviously, this gives you synergies when you look into the different directives and when you want to explore opportunities, for example, to integrate biodiversity or the maritime strategy. The Maritime Strategy Framework Directive with the Maritime Spatial Planning Directive, you get a lot of potential tools that can help you doing that. And this analysis is also leading to that. So this is work in progress. We're still integrating the feedback of the other projects. During the last think tank, which was last week, we had many other projects that told us, okay, I want my project to be included, and they gave us more information about their own projects. So yeah, soon we will have the final report, as I said, and we'll present sort of the final analysis also in Venice at the conference of MSP4BIO. And yeah, I'm available for questions in case, or feel free to write to me if needed. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mauro, and thank you for joining us from your travel to Nice. And yes, we have one more presentation, after which you will have a chance to ask some more questions. So the next speaker is Celine Frank, Policy Officer at DG Mare, European Commission. We are very happy that Celine, you're here with us. You're our guest, as the rest of the speakers are really from MSP4BIO consortium. So thank you for being here with us. And yeah, Celine will present next steps for the Maritime Spatial Planning Directive and Marine Protection, and really perspectives for meeting EU spatial goals. Celine, please, you have the floor.
Thank you, Ivana. And hello, everybody. Happy to be here today. And yeah, I wanted to start my presentation with showing the huge amount of projects on maritime spatial planning that have been done since the adoption of the Maritime Spatial Planning Directive in 2014. And so I really appreciate the efforts of MSP4BIO to also make the links between these different projects and give common recommendations to us. As mentioned by several people now, we just issued our Ocean Pact, and we are entering a period of reflection and revision of the directive. So all these recommendations are really useful, more than ever to us, as we are entering this reflection phase. And yeah, also to show that different fundings, sources of fundings have been used to implement the directive, mostly the European Maritime Fisheries and Aquaculture Fund, but also research funds, Horizon Europe, like it's the case for MSP4BIO, and other social and regional funds. So we hope to continue that. So sharing access to the EU marine space, not an easy thing. That's why we have our directive, and the Commission already published a first report on implementation 1 year after the deadline for member states to present their maritime spatial plans, so in 2022. And this report showed that already back then there was enough space for certain targets of the Green Deals, while others were not yet considered enough in the national plans. So, for example, our offshore energy targets in terms of space, we were already there. Now there are new challenges upcoming, like the wake effect, which means that certain wind farms take the wind of others, and that might create issue when we want to reach our targets. So there is also some additional thinking even in these fields that we saw, okay, we are there, but new challenges are always upcoming. Now on the biodiversity side, we saw that with the plans submitted by 2021, we were not yet there. Since there, we got more plans. And also I have to underline that most of the plans were prepared before the European Green Deal. So there are now many countries are revising their plan already to include those targets from the Green Deal in their maritime spatial plans. So hopefully the second or third versions of the plan will be up to the task. There's also the nature restoration regulation that came into play with a target for restoration by 2030 as well. That needs to be included, and so separate plans, restoration plans that are being prepared now and will need to feed the revisions of the national maritime spatial plans. I wanted to underline also a bit the need in certain areas of the European seas for multi-use. Some EEZs are getting very crowded. I give here the example of Belgium, which is one of the countries that is already at 30% protection, at least designation of areas, and this was included in the latest maritime spatial plan of Belgium. But as you see, with including a lot of activities in these protected areas as well for the limited available space, a lot of transport routes, also quite high ambitions for offshore wind. So it's not yet the case, but Belgium has in mind the idea to have offshore wind farms within marine protected areas. So there's also a reflection on that, and the European Commission provided quite a number of guidance on how to include certain activities in Natura 2000 areas, so notably offshore renewables, but also fisheries, aquaculture. So pretty much each sector has this guidance. Member states have at hand this guidance from the Commission on how to include that. Then, yeah, I know it's often a case by case and depends on the condition of the environment, but we try to give really good practices and help member states in doing that. And yeah, recently in most of the Green Deal strategies and papers that came out, multi-use comes very frequently as really needed things to do. And yeah, we are also working on that. You can go to the next slide, please. And we published some time ago a multi-use compendium online that can be where we showcase good projects of multi-use that exist already, and we also show how the different sectors can work together. So I recommend you to have a look. It's on our European Maritime Spatial Planning platform online, and it's meant to be quite an interactive tool, and we're always open to add new projects in there. So if any of you know some more projects that are not in there, don't hesitate to write to us, and we will be happy to include it. Next slide, please. So coming to the famous European Ocean Pact that was published and presented yesterday by our Commissioner Cadiz. So the main idea behind it was really to connect all these policies that exist on the oceans, but are maybe currently working a bit in silos. And I think this was said by many speakers before. We need to put all these policies together and work better together. We need to consider all the targets, sectoral, but also environmental, that have a spatial impact on our ocean. And so in these slides, you can see we try to, it's not an exhaustive list, but we try to put all the different targets that exist, then that apply for the oceans together. And so, yeah, this will need to be ultimately integrated into maritime spatial plans. And this is one reason why we decided to revise the Maritime Spatial Planning Directive, which will be, let's say, a major pillar of the Ocean Act that was announced in the Pact for 2027. Next slide, please. And yeah, so the Ocean Pact has 6 strategic objectives, and you can see healthy oceans, and so marine protection and management of MPAs comes at the top as the first strategic objective. Then obviously we try to keep a competitive and sustainable blue economy. So we're also preparing a vision for a vision for the year 2040 for fisheries and aquaculture. We're looking at blue carbon and how to integrate it in policies like LULUCF. So land use, land change, and forest, which at the moment is only exploring the blue carbon. So we want to intensify the research and include blue carbon in this framework. So it's also putting coastal communities and islands in the spotlight. These that heavily depends on the resources from the oceans. So we're going to have a specific strategy for coastal community resilience and development upcoming, specifically to help them also in view of climate change that is impacting them most, thinking of our autonomous regions, for example. It has an objective on maritime security and defense. As you might know, this is an increasingly important topic in the EU at the moment. So there are a few actions also on that has to happen in the ocean. Ocean knowledge and literacy was mentioned. We have also a lot of projects related to MSP and data at the same time. So we are launching a new ocean observation initiative, which builds upon tools that we have already, like EMODNet, Copernicus. So with the idea to put together the data and the tools that we have, and yeah, to notably to better monitor the environment and our targets for marine protection. And then the last objective is ocean diplomacy, so more looking at the global level, so internationally, our commitments on illegal, unreported, and unregulated fishing. But yeah, also looking at marine protection beyond national borders, and yeah, plastic pollution efforts that need to be done globally. So yeah, we can go to the next slide. And yeah, I also wanted to present briefly the water resilience strategy that was issued one day before the Ocean Pact. So it's really Water and Ocean Week this week. And yeah, just to mention that in this strategy, it's really underlined the need to have a source to sea approach. So as you know, our main pollution in the ocean comes from the land. So that's also we need to act upfront and have a more, let's say, global approach of the water cycle in general. So yeah, that's will also be part of our reflection on ocean management, like how to better integrate with land management. The important role of nature-based solution, so both on land and in the sea. So from some case studies example to extend them a bit further and make use of these solutions that are inspired by nature for protection, for restoration of the environment. So, and this has to happen along all the water cycle as well. And yeah, climate adaptation. It's both. Is both in the Ocean Pact and in the water resilience as an important aspect as well to consider. Yeah, desalination for islands can be an important issue. So we're gonna also work a bit more on the sustainable desalination for these more remote islands that will need it. And so, yeah, a few next steps that I wanted to underline. There are more, but so on the MSP directive. So we start with a report on implementation that we are preparing now and will be published by March 2026. And we also launch the revision process as announced in the Ocean Pact with European Ocean Act that should be out by 2027. And in which we hope to have a revised MSP directive. We also announced in the Ocean Pact and the Water Resilience that the MSFD revision is ongoing. I mean, the process has been started a bit earlier already, but it's going to be it's done purposefully together with the MSP directive, so that the two directives are revised and the most coherent possible between each other. Also because previous evaluation of the Marine Strategy Framework Directive show that there is a really huge potential for making more links between these two directives, searching more coherence at sea with these. So yeah, as I mentioned as well, nature restoration regulation and the plans by member states that are coming now important and will be integrated in the MSP plans as well. And yeah, also the Ocean Observation Initiative I mentioned, Marine Action Plan for sustainable fisheries in marine protected areas was also mentioned earlier. There are also some targets by 2030 in there, and that should help better marine protection management, especially related to fisheries activities, the vision for 2040 that I mentioned. And also announced in the water resilience strategy is a research and innovation strategy for water resilience by 2026 that we are putting in place. Yeah, also I take the opportunity to say that in general, research and innovation is quite high in both strategies. So also in the Ocean Pact, and may it be for blue carbon, but also several other topics. So there are actions on that as well. So I really invite you to check the paper. Should have put it in there, but I think you can find it. Probably many of you read it already. And yeah, there will be more coming. We are So the Commission President von der Leyen will present it at the UN Ocean Conference in Nice next week. So there will be more coming, more communication from our side. And yeah, I'm happy to take questions. It's new for me as well, so not sure if I will be able to reply all of them, but I will make my best.
Thank you really very much, Celine, for this presentation, and we are happy to have during this webinar some additional or maybe insights in general on the EU Ocean Pact, and happy to hear about the announced revisions of the directives. I'm sure that also all this work done by MSP4BIO and other projects will be useful for this process. So there is one question for you in the Q&A from Riku, asking if there are specific cross-cutting themes or principles to enhance coherence between various ocean policies collected under the Ocean Pact. And as an example, he mentioned a principle such as climate smartness. At the first glance, the strategic objectives don't seem to have such function. So this is a comment and question in the Q&A.
Yeah, thank you, Riku. Yeah, I think, as I mentioned, what we really try to do with the pact is to look at what are the targets, and yeah, we looked at these cross-cutting themes, especially in terms of the different targets that are out there and that need to be articulated together. But it's also true that the pact presents objectives a bit in a sectoral fashion. But keep in mind that the pact is followed by an Ocean Act, and in there it should be made clearer. And I think this kind of principle, like climate smartness, will appear more clearly there.
Thank you so much. We have one more comment or question from Elena, actually, asking if the strategic environmental assessment directive is also considered for review.
It's one of the policies that we are currently looking at, notably in terms of simplification. Simplification, competitiveness is a big priority under this commission. So I cannot tell you for sure if it's going to be revised or not. I think there is going to be first an evaluation of it to see if it's still fit for purpose as well, and if it needs to be simplified.
Thank you. Okay, I think this is it from the chat. We are approaching the end of the webinar, but we still want to give an opportunity if someone doesn't like posting questions in the chats. If you would like to take the floor and ask anything, I mean, Celine or anyone else from the previous presentations. If not, we still remain available for any question by email. So yeah. Nothing in the chats. Okay, so it seems that the presentations were quite clear, and I would also say a lot of information. I hope useful information for everyone. So yeah, to all the speakers, thank you so much. Thank you for your time and these great and informative presentations. We really hope the webinar was useful. As part of the closing remarks, I would like to give the floor back to Marina from PAPRAC to provide some closing reflections and remarks. Marina, and thank you so much.
Thank you, Ivana. Thanks really all the speakers for highlighting the super important elements that were born within the MSP4BIO project. Also, I would like to thank the participants for some of the chat questions and also interesting discussion about Croatian MSP. But before we really close, I would just like to highlight some of the key points that were mentioned today within this webinar. So I think we can see and we know actually that EU is really a key driver, and EU policies are a driver for mainstreaming biodiversity in different sectors, in different policies. And this really encouraged the growth of marine protected areas in Europe. So we heard this important information that something like from 2012, we had around 5.9% of protected areas that grew to more than 12% in 2023. This was largely driven by Natura 2000 networks and national designations. But if we want to reach the 30 by 30 objective, I think we need to work much more and much stronger. But what was also very much pointed out today is that it's not just about the size, it's not just about the percentage. We definitely need to work harder towards the more effectiveness of managing protected areas. And this is one of the important challenges. But I think we all can agree that MSP can be an important tool, an important driver for this, not just in terms of the extending the protected areas, which definitely it can support through marine protected areas and also other area-based management tools, but also in terms of the effectiveness, in terms of let's say, improving the effectiveness of protected areas, especially through targeted approach of protection and restoration. And this is mainly thanks to the marine spatial planning being the ecosystem-based and also with its multi-sectoral approach. It was very important to also hear that across the globe, we have more or less, let's say, 4 types of integration already existing between marine protected areas and MSPs. So they go from conservation as a driver to MSP, to conservation being just one of the layers. So in all these different types, they are really a key important strengths or benefits, but also some of the barriers. We heard a lot about barriers, but let's say maybe some of the 3 groups could be highlighted. So in addition to this uneven implementation, especially in the EU, there is also a weak coordination. This coordination can be experienced across the sectors, but also on the vertical level, from local, national to the regional one. And also there are a number of technical gaps. And to move to the final conclusion, there have been a lot of recommendations mentioning, but it would be important to say that integration of biodiversity into MSP should definitely be strengthened through also by highlighting climate resilience, climate action, climate smartness, that was also mentioned, through different enforceable measures, through clear targets linked to the biodiversity and climate resilience. Also through improving coordination, including the involvement of stakeholders. And this coordination should also go across the borders, also on the regional level. And very important, to further reinforce the legal and policy framework. So I think it was really great to hear, in particularly the last presentation, that announced some of the key changes that will happen, some key adaptation updates to some of the directives, but also with the Ocean Pact. And this is going to further strengthen these objectives that we mentioned. But also there's one final point that needs to be mentioned, is that the marine areas of the EU are also being shared with some non-EU member states. And in that sense, in addition to all the EU policies, it's very important to strengthen this link between biodiversity and MSP through other fora, through different regional institutions, networks, and also, very importantly, through regional sea conventions. So I take this opportunity to thank you all, to all of you that participated, to all of you that shared really these great findings. And I hope to see you all to the final MSP4BIO conference.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Bye, thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Have a great day.
You too.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.